Hello.
I have so
Kara.
many notifications on my telephone.
On your telephone.
My telephone.
I've got to scoot up.
We just gotta get readjusted here. My hair is being wild because I didn't do anything to it today. It's a little fluffy.
I like it.
Thanks.
If you're on the YouTube, you can see Kara's hair right now, and you can tell her it looks amazing.
Thanks. It's just so fluffy.
You guys, I don't know how often, if I've said this in a while, but remember, if you're watching the YouTube video, the thing about the YouTube video is that it's never edited.
We get weird.
Yeah. So, if you're listening to us on here and you're like, man, they're crazy, it's okay. We do an edited, more polished version that goes on the podcast feed wherever you listen to podcasts.
With this madness, just hop over just to the listening part.
Whatever you like. Okay. Hi.
Hi, Megan.
This episode,
Witches, Magic, Murder, and Mystery podcast.
Correct. That's what this is.
Yeah.
I'm Megan.
I'm Kara.
This story I'm about to tell you, I originally started researching it as a Patreon episode.
Yes.
And then the more I got into it, I was just like,
The world needs to know.
I don't want to. Yeah. Now I do love finding like extra crazy stories for the Patreon because I'm like, you guys are subscribing. We want to make sure you get what you're paying for.
Yeah.
But
I mean, it's not that we know that we're enough, but, you know.
But also, it's just this story, the more I got into it, I was like, man, I need everyone to hear this one.
Yes.
It can't be just Patreon only. So,
oh, gosh.
It is just something to talk about. Okay. Before we get into that, I would like to say, you're going to hear us say this a lot.
Yes.
These are our opinions.
Right. Our personal opinions. Nothing is professional.
And it is all...
Because we are not professionals.
We are not journalists. And these opinions are based on the facts that are publicly available.
And we will share every link that we get an article from in our show notes.
Indeed. Okay. Are you ready?
I think so.
Okay. Michelle Von Emster
Mm.
grew up in San Carlos, California,
Okay.
which is like right outside of San Francisco.
Yes.
She had four
Don't
sisters.
ask me how I know that.
I sure didn't.
Yeah.
She had four sisters,
Okay.
which I cannot. I had one brother, and I don't think I realized what life with a sister would be like until now I have two daughters, and I see that. And my mom had a sister. And so there was part of me that was always like, man, it must be great to like have another girl that you're just like so close with.
Yeah.
And I'm sure sometimes it is.
Yeah.
But also, man, I'm glad I had a brother. I'm
Man.
so glad I had a brother.
Man, I have two brothers and two younger sisters, and yeah.
Yeah, I think it would be tough.
Life.
Well, I mean, like I said, I have two daughters, and between the three of us,
same.
it is a lot of hormones.
Yeah, same.
So,
And I think, like, our kids are somewhat similar distance in age.
yeah. Whew. So anyway, so Michelle grew up with four sisters, and she went to an all-girls high school on top of that.
All of the hormones.
And graduated from high school in 1986. From there, she went to college for a couple years, but her college career was cut short because while she was a student in her second year there, she was diagnosed with cancer.
Oh, no.
There were like conflicting reports about what type of cancer it was, but regardless, she beat cancer a year later. So that was amazing.
Yeah.
And so after she got the like all clear on cancer, she
Yeah.
kind of like moved. She didn't go back to college. She like moved around and did stuff.
Okay.
I don't know.
She was like, I'm living life to the fullest.
Yeah,
at
I mean,
this point.
I suspect that could be it, but I don't know. That's just our opinions. Okay, so she moved out to San Diego, and she rented a house in Loma Portal.
Oh,
I don't know why I said Portal.
Portal.
Which is known for its beautiful views overlooking the San Diego Bay.
Oh, I bet it is beautiful.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think anything on the San Diego Bay would be gorgeous.
Yeah.
She stayed there for a bit, and then it seemed like she sort of moved around a lot, taking rooms in like various houses. And from the way
like an Airbnb?
Well, just like she'd move out of this house, and then she'd go rent a room here.
Something's happening.
I know. The way it was described, it sounds like she sort of downgraded each time she moved.
Oh, okay.
Which, you know, it doesn't explain why, but who knows? I mean, she was working like, what's the minimum wage? She was working minimum wage jobs to make the.
What's the minimum?
What's the minimum wage? What's that called? Minimum wage. What minimum wage is called? Not ever enough to live on for anybody.
Yeah.
But she
not the cost of living.
No. So she moved around a lot, and she ended up living in Ocean Beach, which is an area that residents describe as bohemian, but also had a pretty high crime rate, at least at that time.
Okay.
The part of the town where she lived there was known as the War Zone.
Oh.
Which sounds super chill and homey.
I love it.
Yeah. So
Next
Michelle...
travel destination.
The War Zone.
The
Who wants
War
to
Zone.
go there? She really, really loved the ocean.
Okay.
They said that she meditated there every day. And she was described as a free spirit, which is just my favorite kind of person.
I love those people.
Okay, so it's April 14th, 1994. Michelle is 25 years old. And she and her roommate, whose name is Coco Campbell.
Oh, amazing.
Amazing. I even put that, which is amazing.
Amazing.
They were going to a Pink Floyd concert.
How fun.
I know, I love it. But when Michelle and Coco get to the stadium for the concert, it turns out they bought the wrong tickets, so they couldn't get in. I would like to do a whole side piece episode on the mystery of how they got the wrong tickets.
How does that work?
I don't know.
You don't
and
have
then they didn't
Ticketmaster
realize
at
they
the
got
time.
the wrong tickets till they got there, which makes me think they were scammed.
Yeah.
That is my opinion. Not based
Not
on
based
fact.
on fact.
Okay.
Not factual information.
So now they're, disappointed. They were all pumped for this concert.
Yeah.
And it was going to be a great night. And all of a sudden, nope.
They're like, ma'am, this is a QR code off of a cereal box.
Yeah.
I
Where do you
can't
think
take
you're
that.
going?
I can't take that.
So they get in the car to head back to their house in Ocean Beach. And on the way, Michelle turns to Coco and is like, hey, drop me off at the pier, which was like 6 blocks from where they lived. So Coco dropped her off, and that's around 8 p.m. Michelle walks away from the car. She's wearing a green trench coat, and she's carrying a purse, and she doesn't come home that night. That's the last time that anyone sees Michelle alive.
Oh.
The very next day, there were a bunch of seagulls swarming an area near the ocean at...
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, gosh.
At Sunset Cliffs Natural Park and Beach in San Diego. There were a couple of surfers who saw this, and they go to investigate, and that's where they discover the naked, lifeless body of Michelle Von Emster floating in the water, her eyes wide open.
Oh.
Yeah. So, according to the medical examiner, Michelle had not been in the water long when the surfers found her. There wasn't a lot of wrinkling to her skin, so that's kind of how they came up with that. She had large wounds on her body, which were described as tearing type wounds with missing tissue.
Oh. And
her right leg was missing below the thigh.
What?
Yeah. Although initially her cause of death was listed as unknown, people were like, it's a shark attack. They were like, she's died of it. It looks like a shark attack.
Exactly.
I don't know. Something. Maybe it's that fire.
Oh, maybe.
Okay.
So they thought the shark took her leg.
Yeah, it looks like a shark attack, which I guess it would be. She's floating in the ocean.
Yeah.
Her leg is missing, and then there's big tearing wounds with tissue taken from her body.
Yeah.
So an autopsy...
Okay.
Rude.
Don't talk to us.
An autopsy was performed on Michelle's body, and according to that report, her neck, ribs, and pelvis were all broken, and she had various scrapes and contusions on her face and torso. I don't know what's wrong with me. I gotta move again.
Gotta switch it up.
I don't like to talk about this, but we're going to have to talk about it a lot because it's an important, confusing detail.
Okay.
There was sand in her lungs, mouth, throat, and stomach, which indicated that she had been alive at the time that her injuries were inflicted. Sand in her
So she was probably
stomach.
drugged on her face on the beach?
By a shark?
He grew feet.
Listen, Megan.
Listen.
He walked up out of the water. No, I'm not laughing at what's happened to her. I'm just laughing at you, okay?
Because I'm funny.
Kara's hilarious. The doctor who performed the autopsy ruled that Michelle had gone into the water around midnight, possibly for a night swim, and it had been attacked by a great white shark.
I mean, it is possible for sharks, I don't know if it's reef sharks or what they are, but they swim to, Charleston area and give birth to their I think they're called pups. Mm-hmm. On this sandbar within feet of people.
Get out of the water and walk.
Yeah.
And they squat.
They squat, push it out. But within feet of people, playing on the ocean. So what if, she was, in the water and a shark, swam up, drug her?
And there was a sandbar?
Yeah. near a sandbar. I don't know.
Well, we'll get into more of these.
Okay.
But so he said she had gone in for a midnight swim and had been attacked by a great white shark. And that attack is what killed her. And then once she was dead, blue sharks, which are smaller, had scavenged on her body.
Oh.
And all of that makes sense. Like when you read about the state of her body and where it was found, and then you know how much she loved water.
Yeah.
Like I can imagine a scenario where like she's bummed about the concert.
Right.
And, you know, she loves the ocean. So maybe she's just like, I'm going to go.
Yeah.
And like the ocean's going to like reset
Yes.
me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I feel that way.
Oh, I feel the same
about the water. Yeah.
Oh,
like
I'm
it'll
obsessed.
just, not necessarily, I don't want to get in it, but I just love looking at it.
Oh, no. I want to, yeah. Bad thing. No.
And so another thing is when I was a kid, I think I might have talked about this before, but when I was little, my brother had like a full set of encyclopedias. And I, for whatever reason, like I loved like picking them out.
Yes.
And I had a particular fondness for the S encyclopedia. Do kids know what encyclopedias are?
Do you?
It would be like if Google was a book, basically.
God, thinking that they may not know.
I know, because they don't have to use them.
Yeah.
But probably you know, right? Well, so like if Google was a book, it would be a huge book, right?
Yeah.
So instead of it being one big book.
It was every letter of the
right.
alphabet.
There was one book. There were 26 books, one for each letter of the alphabet. And then, so the A book would have like all kinds of things that started with A.
Yeah.
Not a dictionary.
No.
It was like articles, you know?
Yes.
Like in-depth explanations.
It was like Wikipedia.
Yeah.
But like factual things, though.
How do you describe an encyclopedia? It's weird.
Yeah.
I should ask my daughter what she thinks about this.
Yes.
So anyway, the S encyclopedia, which was my favorite, and I would carry it around everywhere, had a whole section on sharks. Oh. And I remember being a kid and reading about the great white shark.
Yeah. And
it became like one of my biggest fears. My dad helped work on the bridges that connect the Florida Keys. And so I can remember, like we would go, because he spent so much time down there, he had a love for the Keys. Yeah. So we go down there and I would just think about this whole great white shark thing.
Yeah.
And it's another one of these things that I think I was entirely too afraid of as a kid.
Right.
Like quicksand, like where you think it's a bigger threat to your life than it actually is.
It's like me at 34 thinking that I'm going to be eaten by giant catfish in the lake.
Yes.
Like that's
a completely normal, valid fear.
Concern.
That makes sense.
Okay.
In my opinion.
I validate your concerns as a young child. Okay.
Thank you so much. My therapist would be very happy. So anyway, I think I spent a lot of time being anxious about being attacked by a great white shark.
Yeah. I don't blame you.
But as I've gotten older, I've learned it's actually not all that common. So I looked it up specifically in San Diego. And this is like as of today, as of yesterday. August 24th, 2021.
34 shark
statistically, there had been a total of 17 shark attacks in all of San Diego County since 1926. So shark attacks in San Diego are pretty rare. Even though sharks are common in the area, it's not, they don't necessarily attack that often.
Yeah.
And it is believed that 5 to 10 species of shark are present within a mile of the shore. And I also saw an article that was like from 2020 or something that talked about like a adolescent great white shark being kind of off the coast.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, it's not that it's completely out of the realm of possibility. Mm-hmm. It's just that it's unlikely.
Right.
Okay. So an important thing to note in Michelle's case is that the doctor who performed her autopsy had never conducted an autopsy on a shark attack victim before. Oh. However, he did... It's not like he just, winged it.
Right.
Like he contacted experts at the nearby Scripps Institute of Oceanography in order to gain more information about shark attack victims. And they gave him information. They answered all his questions, but they never actually saw the body themselves.
He didn't I guess he can't see
pictures. Who knows, right, what the rules are. And it's maybe so exploitive.
Yeah. HIPAA.
Right. As it turns out, there are people who disagree with the autopsy's findings. For one, when he said, like, she must have gone for a midnight swim.
Right.
The air temperature was 57 degrees and the water temperature was 59 degrees at the time that Michelle supposedly went into the water, which is pretty cold for a swim.
Yeah.
And she was wearing a trench coat. So you know that she also thought it was cold outside, right?
Yeah.
Unless that was just a fashion choice.
Right.
Which I support.
Yes.
And
I mean, they were going to a concert. She was trying to look cute.
yeah. And what's too cold for a swim is fairly subjective.
Yeah.
And she was a free spirit. So who really knows?
Right.
But even if you don't worry about that part.
Mm-hmm.
There are people that think her injuries don't necessarily point to a shark attack. So there's this one expert, his name's Ralph Collier, and he's viewed Michelle's remains. And I assume this means he's viewed photographs of her remains.
Right.
He stated that the young woman could not have been attacked by a great white shark. He said that when a great white shark bites off part of a limb, it's a very clean, straight edge cut. He said it looks, you would think a table saw had just, yeah.
Oh.
That's the thing I remember from the encyclopedia. They have rows and rows and rows of very sharp teeth.
And that strength that comes with it.
So, Michelle's femur, where her thigh was cut, was not a clean cut. Instead, the end of her bone came to a point.
Oh.
And it's as if someone had whittled the end of the piece. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Ooh.
Right. And so when he spoke about this to the San Diego Union Tribune.
Not Tribune.
He said, this type of injury is caused when a bone is twisted under great force. I have looked at close to 100 photos of cases that I've reviewed over the years, and I've never seen bones that come to a point for a great white shark attack.
Oh my gosh.
So one possible explanation, for the end of her bone to be so pointed, it could be caused by multiple separate cuts over and over, hacking away a little at a time. You know what I mean? Whittling it to a point, which we'll come back to that later. So just file it away in your brain.
Ooh, I'm trying not
I'm sorry. I'm trying not to. This is the Witches, Magic, Murder, and Mystery podcast. Sometimes we talk about terrible things. If you need a palate cleanser, go listen to Biddy Early and, who was the one we just most recently did, who we love? Grace Sherwood.
Yes, or Kate Warren.
Oh, Kate Warren. That's such a good one, too.
Yes.
Okay, so if we go follow the great white shark theory, the idea... Did I skip a page? No.
I don't think so.
I sure didn't.
No.
Okay.
Good Lord. Wait, don't you all know it's podcast day?
Hey, YouTube. He heard you say that. He was like, shit.
I'm getting it. Honking his horn.
If we go follow the great white shark theory, the idea is that the shark bit through her leg and dragged her down to the bottom of the ocean where she inhaled all that sand. Well, that's what they do, right? They take you and they pull you under. But Collier makes the point that if the shark had bit through her thigh, it would have severed her femoral artery. It wouldn't have been
dragging her.
Well, she would have bled out almost immediately.
Oh.
She would have been dead before she could inhale, which means there wouldn't have been all that sand.
There would have been more water.
Right. And just to talk a little bit more about the sand issue, even though it's really the part of this that I hate to even think about. It's just so awful. But because of where the sand was in her body, she had to have inhaled it. It's not like she got shoved into the sand and it wound up in her mouth.
Yeah.
It was all the way down into her lungs. She breathed it in. And when people drown, that's not a typical thing that happens. They don't inhale sand because it's not up here in the water. Yeah. She had to have she got a mouthful of sand.
Yeah.
A big, deep mouthful of sand.
Yeah.
So that's weird. So whatever happened here, it appears that Michelle's face was shoved into the sand and she took a deep breath. And that isn't shark behavior. Even if we're going to say a great white shark dragged her down to the bottom of the ocean, it didn't drag her down and then shove her
grab
face.
Its fin and just...
Right, yeah. So, and just so we know, this Ralph Collier, this shark expert, he's an internationally recognized authority on Pacific Coast white shark behavior and ecology, and the author of the book, Shark Attacks of the 20th Century from the Pacific Coast of North America. So he knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, he is a shark expert.
And then there is, I mentioned earlier that the medical examiner had reached out to the Scripps Institute for Oceanography. Okay. So Richard Rosenblatt, chairman of the Scripps Institute, isn't it though, for Oceanography, also disagrees with the autopsy's official findings.
Oh.
After receiving the measurements of Michelle's wounds, Rosenblatt stated, none of the marks on Michelle's body were caused by a great white shark. If she had been bitten by a white shark, they most likely would have found a great white tooth broken off into her body.
Oh.
There were no shark teeth at all found in her body. This was not great white shark behavior to hunt at night, he explains. They have, these kind of sharks have light activated retinas. So they come up from the bottom and aim at the silhouette that is highlighted by the sunlight.
Yeah.
So
that's why people get mistaken for seals.
I personally have just made the decision that from now on, I'm only swimming at night.
Yeah. Except for those reef sharks.
In the Pacific. Dang it, Kara.
I
personally have just made the decision that I'm never getting in the ocean again.
Yeah.
When we go down to St. Pete, which is St. Pete, Florida, we go there every year. We try to. And the last couple of times we've been there, like we just swim off the shore. Mm-hmm. And a manatee has swim like right by us, which I love.
I love them.
And then I inevitably think,
there's larger creatures behind it.
Right. If a manatee can be in this shallow water, what else is here?
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't help but my brain ruins everything, you guys.
Yeah.
So additionally, Rosenblatt, the chairman at the Scripps Institute, he said if a shark had taken her leg, it could only have been taken by a great white shark. Like no other shark would be capable of doing this. So if we're saying she was killed by a shark attack in the way that is described in the autopsy report, biting off her leg, dragging her down to the bottom of the ocean, where she'd eventually die from blood loss and drowning, the only shark capable of that is the great white shark. But according to this guy,
that's not gonna
there's
happen.
no way it was a great white shark. Like nothing else about it.
Yeah.
None of the actual physical indicators
matches
point
its
to
habits.
this. Right. Which seems pretty cut and dry. Like both things can't be true.
Yeah.
If we believe his opinion, he's an expert. Mm-hmm. She could not have died as a result of a great white shark attack.
Yeah.
So now, everyone seems fairly certain about the second part of the autopsy's findings, though. The part where the doctor said the blue sharks fed on her body after she was dead.
Oh.
I'm sorry, I know. Nobody argues about that part. There are bite marks. It all matches up. And there's no evidence that Michelle was alive
when that happened.
When that part happened.
Okay.
In fact, her autopsy findings were re-examined in 2008. And at that time, the new medical examiner concluded that she was for sure dead at the time that the blue sharks found her.
Okay.
For what it's worth, Michelle's death is not listed as a fatality with any of the accredited records-keeping institutions like the Shark Research Committee or the International Shark Attack File.
Oh.
Which leads us to, if it's not a shark attack that killed her, like something killed her before the blue sharks got to her. Yeah. Like we know she was dead before the blue sharks found her.
Why are you taking a limb?
So how did she die? Right. It's not an easy thing.
Is that a souvenir?
So that question of how she died remains unanswered to this day. I want to say real quick, there's this really great, very in-depth article about this whole thing in the San Diego Reader by Dave Good. He did like a 2-year investigation and he gave a really comprehensive account with lots of interviews that knew Michelle personally, as well as like different medical examiners and other experts. And so like sometimes when you're doing information, you know how you'll find like one amazing article and you're like, oh my God, this is amazing. That's how I felt about this, to the point that like we always cite our sources in the notes, but
dang,
just go read it. It's so good. I couldn't go into all the details. It would just make this too long, but so good. She has some really violent injuries. Remember, like, I can believe the scrapes and contusions are just from being in the water and being like against rocks or something, but she had a broken neck, broken pelvis, broken ribs. Okay. So there are a lot of theories. One is that she either jumped or fell from the cliffs. Remember how she's at the sunset cliffs?
Her friend dropped her off.
So she either jumped or fell from those cliffs and died. And then the blue sharks
got her,
fed on her body. So apparently the cliffs had some dangerous areas, and like there had been cases before this where people had fallen.
Could she have like hit her leg, it snapped and fallen off? Could that have been a thing?
To be completely cut off, I don't know. It seems unlikely, but another is that she went for that midnight swim, just like the original medical examiner said, but rather than being attacked by a great white, maybe she was got caught up in a riptide.
Oh, yeah.
And then was like kind of violently thrown in water. And then again, the blue sharks fed on her. Right. I don't want to say that anymore.
Yeah, but where's the leg?
Well, I don't know. That's the thing about this. Both of these theories don't really explain the leg part. I'm not going to keep saying that the blue sharks fed on her.
Guys, we know the blue sharks are there.
That part's not contested. Just go ahead and assume it's there. I don't want to say it anymore.
Yeah.
I just don't want to talk about it. And then there are a couple of murder theories, of course.
Okay.
So one thing that people who think she was murdered point to is that, remember how I said she was carrying a purse?
Yes.
That purse was found 2 miles from where they found her body, and it was just laying on the beach out in the open, and it was a really busy stretch of beach.
So it wasn't like the ocean washed it up, like the shore just,
no,
waves
and it wasn't up on the cliffs or anything like that. It was just out there in the open on the stretch of beach where anybody could see it. And it still had money and stuff in it. So there was like, that article I just told you that was so great. He had talked to a private investigator, and the private investigator was like, look, nobody, that money in that purse wouldn't just be there if that purse had been there for hours.
Right.
So it couldn't have been there very long.
Yes.
And if you believe that, then it kind of gives the idea that someone took the purse and then maybe discarded it.
Yeah.
But not to rob her, discarded it so that it wouldn't be found on them.
Yes.
Or maybe so it would kind of muddy the waters.
Right. Why is it found up here?
I don't want to say muddy the waters. It would confuse things further. Better.
Oh, no.
Better.
Yeah, because it's like miles up there, so.
Right.
Her body's over here. What's happening?
And then neither her coat nor any of her clothes have ever turned up.
Oh.
Which, there was one article I read that was like, there's just no reason for her to be naked. And I'm like, well, if she went for a swim, she could have taken off her clothes. But then where are they? If she took them off and left them somewhere.
Why aren't they on the sand? Why aren't they with her purse?
I mean, I guess somebody could have stolen her clothes.
Yeah.
I don't know, but it is odd.
But why would you steal the clothes and not the purse with the money in it? Like, if she left that all there in that pile and swam in the direction that she was found, why aren't the clothes left there?
Right. And then, just going along with things that point to murder, because of the sand being all in her lungs, it makes it like someone held her head down into the water. Yeah. Possibly shoving her face in the sand. And so she breathed in the sand during the struggle. Yeah. Michelle used to work at a coffee shop. Huh. Oh. Get your coffee at Coffee at Oak and Main.
Yes, we won't send you to the ocean.
She had mentioned to a few people that she was being stalked there by a man who drove a motorcycle. And we don't know anything else about him. We don't even know his name. Oh. He was just referred to as a workplace stalker. And I don't know if that means he worked there or if he was a customer associated with the shop, but I assume it's the latter. Oh. I think if he worked there, we'd know his name. Yeah. She then went on to work at an office supply store. And that's the thing is when she got that job, she told people the reason she left the coffee shop was because she thought she was being stalked. Right. And her manager at the office supply store is actually the person who, when there started being on the news, there's been this body of a woman, she had a butterfly tattoo on her shoulder. Uh-huh. And so when they were there's a body, unidentified body, it has this tattoo. And the boss was like, oh, I think that's Michelle. And she hadn't shown up for work in a couple days or something. Yeah. So she is actually the woman who identified the body. There's something.
What is happening today?
If you all, I don't know how much of that I'll be able to edit out, but there's been so many sirens that have gone by during this recording. So anyway, that manager also said that a strange man had come into the office supply store after Michelle had died and made a bunch of copies of Michelle's autopsy report after the investigation had concluded. Oh. And that man, whoever that was, drove a motorcycle, which may have nothing to do with anything.
Right, but still.
How did he... can you just get a copy of... I mean, I guess it's public record.
Yeah, I guess
it could be redacted or something.
If it's closed... I really don't know how that works.
I don't know either. But anyway, he had copies of it. He went into the office supply store where she used to work and made a bunch of copies of her autopsy report. So that's one very vague suspect. There's also a man named Edwin Decker. He and Michelle were co-workers, and they had gone on a date the night before Michelle and Coco went to the Pink Floyd concert. So, literally just before she died.
It's always that.
Yeah. And then, after the date, he's, waiting to see if she's going to call or if they're going to talk. And, she never did. And he's thinking she's not interested. And then he heard about a body being found in the water. She don't know. Terrible joke. We're terrible at jokes.
We're terrible. We're terrible. We're terrible people.
And Edwin was a writer, and he wrote articles about this and everything. And you can tell by the way he talks about her that he really liked her, which could either be very sweet and touching and non-threatening, or it could be
psychotic.
Right. Like
obsessive.
he was really interested and she wasn't. That's the weird thing about being a woman. When a man finds you attractive, it could be great. It could also be deadly. I mean, it's the fun. It's so fun.
It's so fun.
One thing about Michelle, I already told you, she had this butterfly tattoo. And so when Edwin heard and realized it was her, he wrote a poem.
Oh no. Ah, dang it.
Well, I don't know. It depends. Okay.
All right, read me the poem.
The report said there was a tattoo. This is the poem. The report said there was a tattoo, a butterfly on her shoulder, which I remembered that night on my couch when I, like the shark, chewed on her lips and took off her shirt. What are you doing? What are you doing? It's morbid.
Sir.
I don't know how judgy to be about it. Because, like, you guys know I'm a writer, too. And if you're a person who, like, loves to write, then...
Does he, though?
Well, he is a writer and a poet, apparently. I think he regularly publishes... And that's the thing. He put this online. I'm like, dude... I get that maybe this is how you're working through things, but maybe you don't need to put it out there.
Don't do that. Write it on your bathroom mirror.
I mean, for me, seriously, like I don't write poetry very often. When I write poetry, it is because I am going through something. Like all of my poetry is depressing, and no one should ever be allowed to read it. It's awful. But it's like I use petroetry,
petroleum jelly.
I use poetry specifically to like process emotions and work through things. And no, I don't ever put it out there for people to see, because for me, it's like a little therapy thing. And this was clearly a traumatic event for him.
Right. Let's not compare ourselves to sharks.
I'm just not sure I would have
eating people.
Published it online.
No.
It may be nothing, though. Maybe he just...
is going through it.
Chewed on her lips.
And took her clothes.
God. I mean, some people think you and I are weird and morbid for having this podcast, right?
Yeah. The shark took her shirt off. He just said,
well,
with his little...
You should watch the YouTube video just for Karen's impression of a shark taking off clothes. All right. So... even if we throw that out of the mix, if we say, like, it was a misjudgment and not even a great poem, Edwin, I'm sorry. There's one more weird thing that people bring up.
Going through it.
We do. There's one more weird thing people bring up.
Okay.
He told people that Michelle, he was like, yeah, she's great. She's a free spirit. She likes to surf naked. Which... no one else seems to, like, corroborate. Oh. Like, there's no evidence that that's true. But then it's also, like, a weird thing to make up.
Yeah.
But the talk is, like, well, did he make that up so there'd be an explanation for why she was naked?
Yeah. But also, was it a nude beach? Because, would she not be in trouble every now and then for surfing naked?
Naked? I don't know. She's a free spirit.
She is. She does what she wants.
So, I don't really even know how much I care about that. Like, she may have surfed naked, and it's just not a thing that was, like, really widely known. Like, who knows? That's a hard thing to prove or disprove.
Maybe she
did once. Or maybe she just said she did because she was just, like, wanting to give off that, like, I'm free and, you know.
This is what I love to do.
Exactly. So, still. While we're talking about Edwin, remember how I said that a medical examiner had re-examined her autopsy report in 2008?
Yeah, okay. The photos.
Edwin was part of the reason that happened. He and another journalist worked together to get Dr. Glenn Wagner, the San Diego medical examiner in 2008, to reopen Michelle's case. They wrote, Dear Dr. Wagner, we are writing to ask you to take another look at the accidental death finding in the case of Michelle Von Emster. We are writers with special interests in her case. One of us dated Michelle briefly before her death, and the other investigated the case for a story published in Boating magazine in 1994. We believe the previous coroner's conclusions may have been biased because others in the community rushed to judgment about this being a white shark attack. So the idea that like the people who initially found her were like, it's a shark attack. And so he's like, well, okay, it's a shark attack. If you go in already with that in your head,
you're like
it
looking
makes it even
for
easier to
the
point
things
to.
that would point, oh, this was a shark, this was a shark, so it's all a shark.
You accidentally bias your investigation. So Dr. Wagner did reopen it and re-examine it, and he did say there were like some oddities about the conclusions in the report, like how a broken neck, pelvis, and ribs aren't necessarily indicative of a shark attack.
Yeah.
It wasn't enough for him to change her death certificate or officially reopen the investigation.
Okay.
He's like, yeah, you're right, it's weird, but like in the long run, I still think it's right. And I think it would be difficult, kind of in the same way that I think for police officers to question past police officers' work.
Yeah.
For a medical examiner to just say, this old medical examiner who maybe had been my mentor, wrong, completely wrong. It's hard. It's a hard thing to do.
Yeah.
Even if we don't have either of those suspects, like the vague stalker who may or may not have existed, and Edwin, who could just be
love lost.
Who just wrote a strange poem.
Yeah.
Remember how she lived in kind of a sketchy area that people called the war zone? So that lends itself to like, it's possible she just got herself into trouble or stumbled onto a situation accidentally or something that got her killed and then her body was dumped in the cliffs. Yeah. Which still doesn't explain the leg thing.
Right. Where's the leg?
The leg thing is what's the weirdest part. Right? I don't... How? So, and then there's also the possibility there's just the complete unknown. Like, did she do any drugs at the concert? I didn't see any talk of it, but she was going to a concert and she was a free spirit. Maybe she did some kind of drugs. Yeah. Or maybe after she got dropped off by Coco, she did some kind of drugs, and that could have put her in some sort of state to do something illogical. Yeah. That we can't predict, you know? Also, could she have gone swimming and been hit by a boat? Ooh. Because remember that the thing about the bone being in a point? Yes. And it's like, that could have been caused by being repeatedly cut.
So a propeller.
A boat propeller. Could, you know, if it's just cutting it? Yeah. I don't know. Ooh. But it also seems like it would have cut up more than just that part. Right. Ooh. So, according to the Wikipedia entry about Michelle, after the investigation, the family knows the true cause of death and has chosen to keep the details private. However, there's no citation for that sentence. And it says citation needed. Like, we don't know where that came from. Oh. And so I don't know
who put that in
how much we can believe it when we don't know where that came from. Right. Yeah. And it's Wikipedia. So. Yeah. So that's it. We still don't know. And I don't know. Like, I agree. Like, if there's experts in great white sharks who are like this, that could not have been.
No, that's not.
Then I trust
characteristics of that shark.
And it's not just one expert. Yeah. But also, then how did her leg
get chopped off?
It's weird. Ooh. And if someone murdered her and dumped her body, then they got very lucky that the leg got taken off. You know what I mean? Or if they staged the leg part, that is extreme.
To make it look like a shark attack?
Right. That's extreme. Yeah. So, that's it. We still don't really know.
No clue.
How she died, and if it was indeed some type of shark attack.
It's just so weird that someone was making copies of the autopsy report. What are you doing with those?
But also, maybe it was somebody who was just doing an investigation, and it's like, just because he drove a motorcycle and this stalker that she mentioned drove a motorcycle, there's lots of motorcycles in the world, those could be two completely unrelated events. Yeah.
It's so strange.
So strange.
Jeez.
So, okay, that is our episode.
That's today. That's it.
Let's see. This episode, I have to look at my calendar real quick because I want to tell you things.
All the things.
What is today?
The 25th.
So, but the day this episode is coming out is going to be September 10th.
Yes.
So, that means that last Thursday, if you're on the Patreon, you got a brand new episode.
Yeah.
And next Thursday will be our video. So sometime before our next full episode, you're going to get the Patreon video for the month, which we're still working on, and we're really excited. The videos are so fun.
We're so funny.
Yeah. We really entertain ourselves.
We're so funny.
But yeah, thank you guys so much for listening and enjoying this with us.
We love you all so much.
Yeah, you're the best. If you have anything you want to tell us, you can find us on Instagram at Witches Magic Murder Mystery.
Gmail, Witches Magic Murder Mystery, gmail.com.
And you can find our Facebook group, which is Witches Magic Murder and Mystery Podcast Discussion Group.
Yes.
It is so fun. We talk about any true crime stuff we can come up with, but we also just talk about other things and have a good time.
Oh, yeah. And everybody, feel free to just randomly post in there.
Some of the most hilarious people in that group. I love them. And so smart. I just love it. So
you all are incredible.
We'd love to have you there. You just have to answer the 3 security questions.
Literally
for us to let you in the group.
We will not let you in if you don't answer them.
We're sticklers.
We really are.
We're moms.
We are.
And I'm a former teacher. So.
Yeah.
Okay. We love you guys.
Okay, we do.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.